it spreads invisibly. It's about to hitch a ride into the center of the city where it will find thousands of new hosts. With an incubation period of 1 to 2 days, soon hundreds more will be infected. It's a hypothetical worst-case scenario, but scientists fear it for good reason. They know that the last pandemic with this deadly killing power happened less than a century ago. It was the late summer of 1918, and the killing fields of World War I were already strewn with corpses. But somewhere out there, another killer was lurking, one that would take an even higher death toll than the killing machine of war. In the US, the influenza pandemic exploded through overcrowded military barracks. With thousands of soldiers on their way to the front, the disease was set to spread to civilian populations across the planet. People were completely unaware of what was about to strike. Doctors had seen nothing like it before. First came a fever and cough. Then, within hours, patients developed a severe pneumonia. Victims bled out internally as their lungs and other organs were eaten away by the virus. The pandemic tore through cities with alarming speed. In New York City, observers reported victims boarding the subway with a mild cough and being dead by the time they arrived at their destination. Entire families were wiped out in days. In many places, daily life came to a halt. Public services were shut. Food became scarce. Even the supply of coffins ran out. By the time it was all over, the global death toll exceeded 50 million people. Since then, we've had 2 other influenza pandemics, each killing up to 1 million people. They were nowhere near as deadly as 1918, but they remind us that influenza pandemics occur roughly 3 to 4 times a century. According to the experts, we're overdue for the next one. Let's close. Public transport comes to a halt. Many businesses are also forced to shut. The economy begins to stumble. The bird flu outbreak sends shockwaves through global financial markets. Investors fear a drop in production and frantically sell off shares.
In trading today, the FTSE 100 had its biggest one-day fall.
70 billion wiped from shareholders' portfolios.
As infection spreads, ordinary people are desperate to get hold of antiviral drugs. But first in line are medical and mortuary workers, the elderly and the severely ill.
If people know that antivirals are life-saving, and there is some antivirals, but it's scarcity, yeah, well, what do you think will happen?
Week 3. Violent protests erupt over access to limited supplies of life-saving antiviral drugs.
Highways remain bumper to bumper.
Traffic mayhem as the exodus out of London continues tonight.
Now mechanical respirators are in limited supply, and hospitals have run out of life-saving antiviral drugs. With no more room in intensive care, basement corridors have become quarantine treatment centers. Doctors face tough ethical decisions about who gets care.
If you suddenly have 5 times as many people, or if not more, who needs to be on the mechanical ventilator, and the ventilators are not there, what are you going to do?
Surprisingly, the patients most at risk are the young and healthy. Their strong immune systems are double-edged swords. While launching an attack on the infection, they are also killing healthy cells in the lungs. About 20% of those admitted to hospital will die. Week 8. The mounting number of dead bodies could become a serious public health concern. Around the world, mass burials are commonplace. In cities, the flu immobilizes fire and police departments.
The basic system of life will be threatened.
Fires and civil disorder spread out of control. Week 9. The pandemic nears its peak. Over 50% of all workers are out sick or caring for the ill. Farming and industry are crippled, and transportation comes to a standstill. Financial markets are in ruins. Trading floors are closed.
Financial analysts predict the economic fallout will surpass the crash of 1929.
Week 12. The death toll climbs to record numbers.
World Health Organization experts say the global superflu death toll now stands at 100 million and could reach over 150 million before the pandemic subsides. With most hospital systems at breaking point, many families are being forced to provide care for the sick at home.
For families that have survived the worst of the epidemic, many are now tired and depressed.
Across the country, severe food shortages have been reported as production and transportation of goods has come to a standstill.
In 20 weeks, the superflu has swept across every nation on Earth. In cities across the world, the streets are quiet. The pandemic has run its course.